Preparing. Okay, we are live. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to the third day of our open mic. It's the final day of the event, and today we have 6 wonderful speakers from all over the world. We're so excited to have you all here. Feel free to drop any questions into the Slido. The Slido's information is in the email, or if not, you can type it into the chat of this YouTube live stream, and we will forward your questions out to the speaker. If we do run out of time, make sure to email us any questions and we will pass them on to the speaker. Our first speaker of the day is Annie Pateman, a cancer survivor and author from Garfield, Australia. Annie will be sharing the strategies she used to overcome the disease and live life to the fullest. Make sure to check out her book called The Strength Within, as it covers her extremely inspirational story. We are so honored to have you here at our event. Feel free to begin whenever you're ready.
Thanks so much, Priya, and thanks so much for inviting me. Well, my story started 42 years ago, so I'm a 41-year survivor. I was 26 years old and I was 3 months pregnant at the time. What happened was, for about 18 months, I had a lot of pain in my knee, my left knee. And I'd gone from one doctor to another. No one could tell me what was wrong with me. They said I had bursitis or arthritis and all these diagnoses. And when I was 6 months pregnant, I was in extreme pain, extreme pain. I had a toddler as well. So the toddler, you can imagine if you're not well and you're looking after a toddler and you're pregnant, and it's pretty chaotic. And and then I found out that I did have cancer once I was diagnosed. And I shall read an excerpt from my book, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail now. And the result I shall also tell you shortly. But the main thing about it is when people are given that diagnosis, cancer, it's like, oh my God, is it a death sentence? Or they're in shock or disbelief or panic. But for me, it was an absolute enormous relief that I finally knew, after 18 months of being told one thing and another and seeing a number of doctors, 10 doctors, an orthopedic surgeon, and no one really would spend the time with me. And also, you know what, they did not believe me. Even though I was quite thin, I'd only weighed 42 kilos at the time. I was 7 stone. I was 6 months pregnant. I had a lump the size of a tennis ball on my knee by this stage. And no one was believing that there was something wrong with me. And it was extremely frustrating, as you could imagine. So that's why when I got the diagnosis, I was relieved. And then I felt, now that I know what it is, I can work with this. Okay, let's deal with it. Let's get through it. Let's get over it. And then I can continue on with my life. And that's what I did. I just had a really strong positive attitude. I really believed that I would survive it and get through it. The cancer was actually a Ewing sarcoma, which doesn't have that greater percentage of survival. It's got about 30% survival rate. It's also normally found in children. In children about 10 to 12 years old, or in women, only women in their 20s, which is crazy because I was in my 20s when I was diagnosed. So I'll read the excerpt from my book. When I was lying in hospital, one of the doctors came to me and asked me how I was feeling. And I said, look, you know what? I'm feeling great. And he said, would you like to write your thoughts down? And I said, okay. So he gave me a typewriter, a little portable typewriter, for those who remember what they are, and some paper. And I started writing on about how I felt. And I have this in my book. I am an author, as Priya mentioned, and this is my book, The Strength Within. So I'll just read I'll read this letter that I wrote to myself. And that'll give you an idea of exactly what I was going through. I wrote this note on the suggestion of one of the doctors treating me at Traralgon Hospital. I was lying in the hospital bed feeling stunned and overwhelmed with the speed of how things happened. There I was, diagnosed with bone cancer whilst pregnant, and 3 days later I had over half my leg amputated. I guess he suggested I write my thoughts down as a therapeutic measure. I was supplied with blue typing paper and a typewriter. I was 26 years old when I wrote this letter to myself, but also I was a bit high on morphine and the grammar wasn't terrific, so please forgive me for that. So this is May 1980. I'd been having a lot of trouble with my knee. I had been told that I had bursitis, strained ligaments, cartilage trouble, and arthritis. Being an ex-squash player, any of these things could have been related to the knee. I was at the stage where I did not know what to believe. I'd been to see everyone from general practitioners to naturopath. I was getting quite frustrated and upset by this time because the trouble with my knee had been going on for over 18 months by this stage, and I still didn't know what was wrong with it. I was becoming very tired and lethargic. At times I could not walk because the knee would seize up with swelling and pain, and a noticeable lump had formed. Also, I was now 26 weeks pregnant, which could have added to my tiredness. On Thursday, the 20th of March 1980, I went for my 6-month antenatal checkup. Bearing in mind I'm only 4'11" and I was 7 stone in weight. I had lost more weight every month. Something must be wrong, but what was it? I mentioned to my gynecologist that my knee was not getting better and that a lump was growing there. After checking it, he insisted that I have x-rays taken immediately. As I write this, I seem to recall that I was actually explaining to the gynecologist that no one was listening to me, as something was extremely wrong. And he replied that they don't like to take x-rays while you're pregnant. And I remember insisting that something needed to be done. Once the x-rays were taken, it was the start of a very traumatic time in my life and my family. After the x-rays were taken, the assistant orthopaedic surgeon wished to discuss them with his senior. The following day, my gynecologist called and asked me to come into the hospital on the Sunday. There was a rush on Saturday morning to get myself organised and my 3-year-old son as well. My sister was able to take 2 weeks leave from her school as she's a teacher. On Tuesday, 1st of April 1980, ironically, April Fool's Day, a biopsy was performed on my knee. It was confirmed, a Ewing sarcoma tumour, and it was malignant. Usually found in children, I was told. And if it was found in children, why did I get it? I had asked them. They couldn't answer that. They just did not know why these things happen. My leg was to be amputated above the knee. The medical superintendent, who was also a paediatrician, was preparing me for my baby's birth. The operation might start my labour. They would make the baby's few days of life as comfortable as possible. Everything was happening so quickly. Questions were racing through my mind. How will my husband cope? Am I going to live or die? Will the baby survive in my womb through the operation? Will my husband still want me with one leg? They may seem futile things to think about, but you just don't know what to think at these uncertain times. 4th of April 1980. The operation was performed. Luck was with me. The tumour was localised. There was a good chance that there is no sign of cancer anywhere else. What a relief. And the baby was still safe in my womb after the 2 operations. Now for my next hurdle. Discussions between paediatricians, gynecologists and oncologists were thick and fast between the Central Gippsland Hospital, where I had the amputation, and the Royal Women's Hospital, where I was to have my baby. It was the oncologist's decision when I was to have the baby because I had to have her before I started treatment. The question was, could it wait until I was 32 weeks pregnant for me to have a natural birth? I might add this was 26 weeks when the surgery happened. I was 26 weeks pregnant. Or would I have to have a cesarean at 30 weeks in order to save my baby? More good news. They all decided that I could wait till 32 weeks to have the baby naturally. I was transferred to the Royal Women's Hospital. They injected me with special drugs to quicken the development of the baby's lungs, so she would have a better chance with her breathing after she was born. On the 8th of May 1980, Jessica Ann was born at a healthy 3.5 pounds, 8 weeks premature. She wailed the moment she was born. What a wonderful sound it was. My husband with me during my labour was present at her birth, and we both cried with joy when we saw her. What a little fighter she was. She had to do well. Jessica had a few breathing problems and had to have her blood changed once because of her jaundice. She was out of intensive care in a week. She was now putting on weight and filling out and doing wonderfully, thanks to the wonderful doctors and sisters at the Women's. Now for my next hurdle to overcome. Starting my treatment using the cytotoxic drugs. More questions raced through my mind. Will I be very tired? Will I get very sick? Will I lose my hair? Will I become infertile? These are some of the side effects people have suffered. So I was to be transferred to another hospital called Prince Henry's. After coming from a maternity hospital where there was life all around and happiness, it was very hard getting used to a ward where there were a lot of sick people around me. I was very determined to get over the effects of the drug so I could get out of there as soon as possible. The day for my first dose of treatment came. It was administered through my arm with an intravenous needle. They put an ice cap on my head to prevent me from losing my hair. I became very tired. That was all. I slept the rest of the day and night, and the next day I was discharged. The doctor said if I sailed through the first dose, the rest would be easy. Treatment will last 12 months. I was quite pleased that I had handled my first treatment without any side effects. I was just tired, but I felt like dancing. Nothing was going to beat me. Now for my last hurdle, rehabilitation at another hospital, Hampton Hospital. I'll be getting an artificial leg, and I'm here to learn how to walk and also just do normal everyday household duties, such as cleaning, cooking, washing. It'll be about 12 months before I get my final leg. In the meantime, I'll have an interim leg because the stump has a lot of shrinking to do. In a couple of years, I'll be back on that squash court, and this is my goal. I'm grateful to my wonderful husband, David, who is always and still is there to support me. And I've got my 2 children who need me. My sincere thanks to all our family and friends who also helped and encouraged me with their support, and to all the medical and nursing staff that I was associated with at all 4 hospitals, who also encouraged me, because without them, I would not have the strength to cope and therefore be determined to get back on 2 feet as soon as I can. So that's just a brief record of exactly what I was going through. But I was actually back on that squash court within 8 months. So I I had a lot of determination, a lot of positive thinking. I did pray a lot, and I had a lot of supportive friends and family, and that's what gave me the strength to keep going. And as I said, that was 41 years ago, and I'm still here. But tragically, I'm a 3 times cancer survivor. And 30 years later, after you would think that you were cancer-free, I went for a regular mammogram and they discovered that there was a lump in my breast. And then it all started again. It was just like this big flashback. Oh my God, haven't I been through enough, sort of thing? Did this have to happen again? A totally different cancer, but you think, oh, and I just kept thinking, what did I do in a past life that gave me the life that I've got, in this life? But that's okay. So once I got over that shock, I had the lump removed. And then 2 years later, another mammogram and again another lump. And it was unrelated. So they suggested I have a mastectomy. And that was pretty tough to deal with because, it's like I was losing body parts. I already lost a leg and now I was losing a breast. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? But again, once you got over that, shock and diagnosis and the support, I thought, no, we're going to get through this again. And that's 10 years ago. So I've got a really, wide gap between the cancers. But I just had my final appointment with my oncologist, and he says to me, look, congratulations, you are cured. So that was really something to celebrate. So what have I done with my life? So I lived my life to the fullest. I worked, I've travelled, I climbed mountains, we went to Europe, I went to France, I went to the Arc de Triomphe. They've got 745 steps all the way to the top of the Arc de Triomphe. I climbed every single one of those. So, I didn't let, now my disability to get in the way of my life. So, so I just live life to the fullest. I'm really pleased to say that my daughter is now 40 years old. And she's now a mother herself of 2 children. Because initially when I was diagnosed, they were convinced that I would lose the baby because they said that I wouldn't be able to, or she wouldn't be able to cope with the trauma of the surgery. And at that time, I had to make a decision, which was a pretty horrendous decision. It was whether I would either be sacrificing the baby's life, and if I decided not to have my leg amputated, that I would for sure would have passed away. And then I had like a husband and a toddler already, so they would have lost the mother, wife, and new baby. So it wasn't a horrendous time at that time. It was like a double-edged sword. What do? Do you say, yes, no, I won't have my leg amputated, and for sure it was a death sentence? Or do you take that risk, have your leg amputated, and then you may lose the baby? But as I've told you that it was a pretty tough decision, but we took the risk and we both survived. So it was a really good end result. And what else have I done? As I said, I worked, I went back to sport. I ended up playing 10-pin bowling. I became a national champion for Australia in disability sport. And now I just try to spend as much time as I can with my grandchildren, who are 6 and 3, two boys, gorgeous boys, but they live in New South Wales. I live in Victoria, so we've got a distance thing. And now with COVID, sadly, we're locked out of that state. They're in lockdown. But yeah, and I've really had a good life. I really have had a good life. 11 years ago, I decided to write a book because many people suggested, it's an inspirational story and I should do something about that. So it took me 11 years. It took a long time because I just got stuck. I had a couple of attempts and then I found a mentor. And once I sat down with him and he helped me create some chapter headings, we're on our way. So my whole story is in this book, The Strength Within. It's got the strategies in there. I did do meditation and prayers, and I'm a spiritual person, so I really believe in the spiritual side of things. I also changed my diet to vegetarian. Yeah, so, they're the sort of things that I did, or the strategies I did to overcome this awful disease.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing such an amazing, inspirational story. Honestly, it was, oh my God. Oh my God. So I have a few questions
Yeah.
that I would like to ask. So you mentioned how the strategies they helped you get through your cancer journey. But what sort of strategies do you think can be applied to anyone? Family members of cancer patients or friends, or to help them deal with their relative or loved one who's dealing with the cancer?
My strategy, because I'm not a psychologist or a social worker, I'm just like a normal person. My strategies are, I think, quite easy, if I could say that. Just be positive all along. Cancer does not need to be a death sentence. These days, of course, we've got so many new drugs and everything like that. But also, as a lot of people mention, exercise, which I have to be honest, I'm not good at that. But I'd swim. I used to swim, but, with lockdown and everything, it was difficult to continue doing that. Positive attitude. I changed my diet to vegetarian diet, just cut meat right out. I also cut out onions and garlic, which I know is going to sound really strange because every single meal in the world has onions and garlic. But if you do research on that, it actually affects your organs, your spleen, your heart, your lungs. They weaken them. And also, and I found that that's really helped a lot. And when I went for my blood tests, they were just all clear, especially before I became vegetarian. My cancer cells were growing again with my blood tests, and that's when I cut meat out. And it's after that things have started to look a lot better. And the other thing I do is I really believe in alternate therapy, Chinese medicine and acupuncture. So I will also do that. And I just go just to get my batteries. If I feel tired, I just go and get my batteries recharged. Mm-hmm. And it's all worked for me, all of it. And none of it's hard to do. Most of it's free. And just have a go at doing that. Yeah, but the positive attitude, I really believe that has a lot to do with it. Mm-hmm. And by the way, the ice cap didn't work. My head did fall out.
Oh, well, that's okay. As a matter of fact, how you mentioned fitness and exercise with treatment. We actually had someone in our previous open mic day talk about fitness with cancer treatment and how it can actually help. I wasn't there on that day, but if anyone who's watching wants to check that one out, it's Miss Rory Zura. But yeah. You spoke about how, some people, not some people, but a lot of people need to understand that cancer doesn't equal death. Obviously, that's one of the first things people think about, that, oh my God, it's such a deadly disease. How do you think we can, educate others that cancer isn't death? There are other ways out of it.
I think if you just keep a check on your health, because as you know, early diagnosis is the key. With my leg, obviously, that was just, actually my oncologist called me his miracle patient. That was sort of a miracle that I did survive, but it's a 30% survival rate. So I came into that 30%. I didn't look at the 70%. Oh my God, 70% of people die of this. I said, well, 30% survive, so I'm going to be in that 30%. With breast cancer, obviously, it was discovered through a mammogram, so that was early detection. And with men as well, we all know to get checked for prostate, to get your prostate checked. With stomach cancer, that's not that can be prevented on early detection. So most of them, I think, on early detection can be prevented and can survive. But I also think your positive attitude, because a lot of people think, well, it is a death sentence. All right, I've had a good life, I'm going to die now. Well, of course, if you're going to have that attitude, you will, as far as, what I think anyway. I might sound a little bit simplistic, but that's how it got me through. Yeah.
No, I really think having a positive attitude is the way to go. It, not only the physical aspect, but having a mental aspect, a positive aspect. It really, I feel like it connects. The
Yeah.
physical, mental. It really just, they support each other. So even if you have something negative physically, having a positive attitude mentally will really get you through it.
Absolutely.
You mentioned how a lot of people, they wanted you to write the book. They wanted you to write out your feelings. Do you think writing a book has the similar effects to, exercise, people who feel good after exercising, or, releasing stress through art or playing an instrument or stuff like that?
Writing the book, actually, it was interesting because I thought if no one buys it, that doesn't matter. It's more like a family legacy. Like, at least my grandsons now will get to know their grandmother when they're older. They'll think they already know. Actually, it was quite funny. My 3-year-old, he was about two and a half. And it was the first time he'd noticed that I didn't have my leg on. And it was the first time he noticed that Granny only had one leg. And he just walked in the room. I think I was just getting out of bed. They were staying with us on a holiday. And he goes, "What happened?" Like that. And it was so innocent. And I said, "Oh, Granny's only got one leg." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And it's just as simple as that. But yeah, I think, I don't know if I would compare it to a musical instrument, or I would love to play. I'm so unmusical. But writing a book isn't easy because you've really got to dig deep. And someone asked me if I'd kept a diary, and I said no. It was incredible once I sat down to write it, how the memory just came back, and the stories, and also had a really good editor. Because I would write one sentence about something and she'd say, "Oh, no, we need to know more about that. That's a really important part." And then there'd be another chapter. So, and I never ever dreamt I would write a book in my life. But I felt a great sense of achievement when I finished it. And then when I got it published, that was just amazing. Yeah. So, am I going to write another book? I don't know.
I was just about to ask that. Do you hope to write any books in the future? You read my mind.
Yeah, people do ask me that because I actually recently broke my arm, another drama in my life. And everyone's saying, oh, you're going to, write another book, or you're going to add that, another couple of chapters to your book. And I'm going, no one wants to hear any more about my dramas. But yeah, I just fell and landed on my elbow and cracked. It just broke.
Man.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I hope your arm is doing better now.
Oh, it's getting there. It's
good.
getting
Okay.
there.
That's good. That's good.
Mm.
Throughout your cancer journey, did you feel supported? You mentioned how it was a really long journey, and there were a few occurrences of cancer. Did you feel supported throughout?
Yeah, absolutely. My sister was probably my greatest support. I remember one night I was lying in bed, and this was before I was diagnosed, and we were living in about 2 hours away from her. And I was in so much pain. My husband was working night shift. He wasn't there. And I couldn't sleep. I couldn't take any medication because I was pregnant. And my knee was just excruciating pain. And I had to call her to say, you must come, because I was terrified, having a very active, 2.5-year-old, that I would not cope with dealing with him and his demands and the pain I was going through. I was just terrified what I would do. That I would just, neglect him, and I wouldn't be able to help him or, do anything that he required. So she immediately, came up and just stayed with us for 2 weeks. And she literally took me to the doctors, and she was literally carrying me because I could not put my foot to the ground. I couldn't stretch out my leg. The pain was that intense. And again, when the doctors saw me, and I'm in extreme pain, excruciating pain. I couldn't put my foot to the ground. And they said, just take some Panadol. And so my message here really is, if no one believes you, just keep going until somebody does believe you. When I was in the gynecologist's office, when I was having my checkup, I actually threw a massive, I don't know why I didn't write it in that letter. As I said, I had morphine, so my brain was a bit dull. I actually threw a tantrum. I screamed and cried and just said, I'm not leaving, because it was at the hospital. I'm not leaving until someone tells me what's wrong with me. I was 6 months pregnant and weighed 7 stone. I mean, that's ridiculous. And then the orthopaedic surgeon came down to see me, and they took me up to X-ray, and they put about 7 aprons over my stomach to protect the baby. And they just couldn't get me in hospital quick enough after that. Yeah. So just, if no one believes you, just yell and scream, find someone that does. And unfortunately, even today, there's a lot of misdiagnosis. You still hear about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's so many connections being made with our open mic. There was another speaker who came in, and they were talking about advocating for yourself. And she had a similar situation, that the doctors, they just didn't know what was wrong, and they just kept saying, oh no, there's nothing wrong, you don't have cancer. And then she finally pushed for it, and they found out that she had cancer. And it just reminded me so much of that, and how much of an amazing lesson is that you have to keep pushing for yourself, that it's always, it's your story. You have to make sure you get your goal, and that you're satisfied. So,
yeah, it's just the same as a mother with a baby. The mother knows that there's something wrong with the baby,
mm-hmm.
Or your child. You've just got this instinct,
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like going off of that, how do you think that family and friends can support a cancer patient? Because the cancer patient is going through so many different things, so many emotions, pain. How do you think other people can support that patient?
I think listen to the patient, because sometimes they just do not want people around them. Mm-hmm. They just want to sort of just be by themselves. But I think cook meals for them, that would be really good. so that, see, in my day, we didn't have takeaway or anything like that. So you relied on people to cook meals for you. But now you've got Uber and all those things that can deliver meals and things like that. But home cooking, there's nothing better than that. So if you can cook meals for them, clean their house, do the washing, just make their life as easy as possible, especially when going through chemotherapy. Just help them, listen to them. Their demands may be weird, just do it. But also what I should add is when I had the acupuncture during the chemotherapy, I didn't have any sick. I wasn't sick. I didn't have any nausea. I wasn't tired. It was just amazing. What the acupuncture did. I didn't go through those awful symptoms that you normally get with chemotherapy, but I did lose my hair. But anyway, no, well, that was with the breast cancer. I did the acupuncture. Yeah, so look, just support them as best you can, and if they don't want you there, don't insist. Oh, but you really need. Do you want a cup of tea? Whatever. No, I just want to be by myself. So just walk away and leave them on their own, I think.
It's really amazing. Thank you so much. I don't have any more questions, but if any of you watching do, please either put it in the chat, in the Slido, email it to wearecancertogether@gmail.com. I will forward it to Annie, and I will send you guys back the reply. Thank you so much for coming here, Annie. We are so honored to have you here. Thank you for sharing such an inspirational story. I'm sure we can all learn so much from it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Brian. If I could just mention my book, where it's available. It's available on Amazon, on all the big online book sites. It's also available on Audible as an audio book and also as an ebook. So on all the platforms. So, yeah, just pick up a copy. I'd really appreciate that.
We will put the link in the description of our YouTube video. So if anyone wants to rewatch it, they can click on the link and they can pick up a copy.
Terrific.
Great. So our next speaker will begin at 10 o'clock. So in about 24 minutes. So we will see you guys then. We will start up another live and it will be called Open Mic Famida Afrin. And see you guys there. Thank you so much, Annie. Thank you.
Thanks, Priya. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.